Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Flame Entertainment and Sports. It's your boy Rob here. Hope everyone's doing good out there. On this episode, we're going to be covering the season 34 premiere of Dancing with the Stars. For all my sports people, don't worry. I decided not to cover any NFL or Dolphins stuff today because the Dolphins do have their next game coming Thursday night. So stay tuned, and at the end of the week, we will have some sort of NFL/Dolphins recap episode for you all. But with all that said, before we get into Dancing with the Stars, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the flame_ES. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share with a friend. Give us a rating, drop a comment, whatever it may be. We appreciate all the love, all the support. And yeah, guys, with all that said, let's get into the season 34 premiere of Dancing with the Stars. All right, guys, now let's get into the season 34 premiere of Dancing with the Stars. First off, to give my overall general thoughts prior to going couple by couple, this had to be one of the all-time great premieres in the history of the show due to the competition level that it's looking like we're gonna see on this season, because I would say the majority of the couples on night one already very much impressed a lot of the audience. I was blown away by a lot of these couples, and it was an absolute joy to start this, such a big time season in the history of the show. It's been 20 years since Dancing with the Stars started. And the fact that the first episode of this historic season for the show started at such a high level, I think is amazing. And I'm super happy for everyone there at Dancing with the Stars. With all that said too, a little side note. So on Tuesday, a couple hours prior to, the episode starting off at, 8/7 Central on ABC, Carrie Ann Inaba took to social media to announce that she was feeling under the weather, feeling kind of sick. And with that said, for the first time in the history of the show, Carrie Ann was not part of the judging panel. And for the first time in the history of the show as well, we only ended up having two judges, and it was Derek and Bruno. So that was definitely very different. And yeah, before I get into these couples, I do think I gotta say, we very much missed Carrie Ann yesterday. And it's nothing against Derek and Bruno, but at the end of the day, I think watching Derek and Bruno yesterday kind of shows that dynamic of the three of them is very much needed, and is part of what makes this show so special. So, shout out to Carrie Ann. We can't wait to see her back on the judging panel, but most of all, we can't wait to see her back at full health and feeling as good as possible as soon as possible. So, shout out to Carrie Ann. With all that said, the night started off with a salsa by Jordan and Ezra. So Jordan Child, she's a Olympic legend, a gymnastic legend. And she was dancing with Ezra Sosa. Of course, Ezra, second season as a pro on Dancing with the Stars. Last year, he was paired up with Anna Delvey. They danced a salsa to Break My Soul by Beyonce. So for each of these couples, guys, I'm going to be giving you my score. Typically in the past, I would give an overall score, in terms of the three judges combined. But this year I'm switching things up, and I'm giving the score as if I'm one judge, just giving a single number. That makes sense, not an overall total number for each couple. And I'm also gonna mention some notes that I wrote down here. So to start off now with Jordan and Ezra. So Jordan and Ezra came out, like I said, with a salsa, dancing to Break My Soul by Beyonce. I thought it was okay. I wasn't overly impressed. At the end of the day, it is normal, first dance of the season. But then you think of last season, right? You think of season 33. The season started off with an amazing performance by Joey and Jenna, who ended up being the Mirror Ball champions. And then you go to Jordan and Ezra this season. And unfortunately, I don't think any of us expected it to be as good as what Joey and Jenna started off last season with. But yeah, I would say, there are a couple mistakes. I kind of felt like they were offbeat for the majority of the dance. And that was something that I kind of noticed, specifically the timing for me wasn't really working. I feel like that's something I really got to work on. And yeah, I did see a couple mistakes here and there, but mostly the biggest thing that stood out was the timing. And yeah, overall, I wasn't really a huge fan of this performance overall. I gave Jordan and Ezra a 6. Now we move on to the second couple of the night. We had Dylan Efron and Daniela Karagach. They danced a cha-cha-cha to Milkshake. And I think Dylan and Daniela did an incredible job. The charisma of these two, the star power and the amazing chemistry was shown from the get-go with Dylan and Daniela here. I saw Dylan, I thought he had great rhythm in this dance. Just like Jordan and Ezra, there was some moments where Dylan was kind of off timing, but not as much as, Jordan and Ezra were. And I just feel like overall, Dylan, I saw him get better as the performance went on. So that was a good sign for me. And I think Dylan's definitely someone who I think after watching this performance, like many people are going to be very high on Dylan going forward. I was high on Dylan. Like if you guys heard my thoughts, my preseason predictions last week, and watching him perform on night one, I was very much impressed by this couple. And obviously, like last week, I called Daniela, arguably the greatest coach, right, in the history of Dancing with the Stars. She's able to put each of her partners in the best possible position for them to succeed. And I think that was on full display on night one. Then we move on to the third couple of the night, which was Elaine, Hendrix, and Allan. They also danced to Cha Cha Cha, just like Dylan and Daniela. But Elaine and Allan danced it to Woman by Kesha. And honestly, I gotta say, Elaine Hendrix looked like an absolute like great dancer out there. She was so like technically sound in comparison, right? Like to the first two couples, right? To Jordan, Ezra, and Dylan and Daniela. I felt like this couple, like the third couple of the night, Elaine and Allan, they're the most on beat so far. Elaine, I don't think she missed a step. And literally my notes, I put great timing and great technicality, because I just felt like Elaine and Allan were on point from the beginning to the end of the performance. And I think also, too, we got to credit Allan. He's obviously a great pro and a lot of people love him. But I feel just like Daniela, I think Allan really helped Elaine and, allowed her to shine in the areas that she's able to shine best in within dance. And I think Elaine did a hell of a job. Like, I'm super impressed by Elaine. She did an amazing job. With that said, I forgot already to give Dylan and Daniela a score. So for Dylan and Daniela, I gave them a 7. They ended up getting 2 5s from the judges. And also with Ezra and Jordan, like I said, I gave them a 6. They also ended up getting 2 5s from the judges. So Ezra and Jordan and Dylan and Daniela both got a 10 out of 20. And then for Elaine and Allan, I gave them a 7, and they got 2 6s. And so a 12 out of 20 from the judges. And once again, shout out to Elaine and Allan, because I think this couple very much surprised a lot of people on night one. Now we move on to the fourth couple of the night, and arguably the best couple of night one so far, Whitney and Mark. Whitney, of course, she's one of the Mormon wives. Mark, a Dancing with the Stars legend. He appeared as a guest judge last season, returns to the ballroom floor for season 34. And I mean, this was just absolutely incredible. I was blown away. I think Derek Huff said it best, that like he was kind of speechless, right? Because I was speechless too. I was like blown away by these two. Obviously, we know how great Mark is, but like we had never really seen Whitney dance. But man, these two just came out like with a grand slam. Like Whitney and Mark definitely have to be, after night one, they have to be considered one of the favorites to win the Mirror Ball, because that was an unbelievable dance, and to have it at night one is just unbelievable. Literally my notes, I wrote amazing and all capital letters with a bunch of exclamation points. And call me crazy, I know it's night one, but I go with my gut and what I'm feeling. I gave Whitney and Mark a perfect 10. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm still lost for words when I think of their performance. So shout out to Whitney, shout out to Mark. Hell of a start. Cannot wait to see what you guys do going forward into this competition. Wow, an unbelievable start for Whitney and Mark. Like I said, I gave them a 10. They ended up getting an 8 from Derek and a 7 from Bruno, so they got a 15 out of 20. Then we move on to the next couple of the night, which was Baron Davis, a former basketball player, and Britt Stewart. They danced a cha-cha-cha to You Can't Touch This. And by the way, Whitney and Mark, sorry guys, this is our first one back in a while. I'm kind of off right now, but Whitney and Mark, just so you guys know, they danced a tango to Golden. And now Baron and Britt, they danced a cha-cha-cha to You Can't Touch This by, of course, MC Hammer. And, Baron and Britt, I really much love the personality of Baron throughout this performance. And something that really impressed me too, like I mentioned as well with Dylan and Daniela earlier, like Baron and Britt, I thought they finished very much better than what they started. Not that they started like bad, but at first I kind of felt Baron was kind of off timing. And then as the dance progressed, I saw him get more confidence, and then you see that big smile he has, a great charm and charisma he has. And Baron and Britt, I think I'll put them in the middle of the pack right now. And I would arguably say that they kind of exceeded what people expected of this couple going into night one. I gave Baron and Britt a 6. They ended up getting 2 5s from the judges, so that's a total of 10 out of 20 for Baron and Britt. Now we move on to my preseason Mirror Ball champion, and I think they very much lived up to the hype on this first episode of season 34. There's Alix, Earle, and Val. They danced a Cha-Cha-Cha to Circus by Britney Spears. And definitely my favorite song choice of the night, by the way. And for Alix and Val, I gave them an 8. I thought they're unbelievable from start to finish. I didn't give them as high of a score as Whitney and Mark, because I felt Whitney and Mark were fully sharp from start to beginning, but Alix and Val were nearly right there. I gave them an 8, and uh, all I put in my notes was star with a bunch of exclamation points. I think Alix absolutely killed it on her Dancing with the Stars debut. Like, she was unbelievable. I'm not shocked by that. As I said, preseason prediction wise, I had her and Val as the Mirror Ball champions for season 34. And I think they're off to a hell of a start. And if this is what they did on night 1, this is just the beginning for Alix and Val. I cannot wait to continue to follow and cheer on this couple going forward. And with that said, the score they received from the judges were a 7 from Derek and a 6 from Bruno. So they get a total of 13 out of 20 for Alix and Val. Now we move on to the next couple, who I would say very much surprised me, maybe surprised other people, in the Dancing with the Stars fan base. Scott and Rylee. Scott is a singer from the Pentatonics, and Rylee, of course, the sensation that's literally taken all the hearts of Dancing with the Stars fans by storm over the past couple years. I can't believe this is her 3rd season already as a pro. It's amazing to see her continue to do her thing out there. But Scott and Rylee very much impressed me. They danced a tango to Abracadabra by Lady Gaga. Great song right there. For Scott and Rylee, I wrote great timing and over-exceeded. It's literally while I was watching that performance. By the way, shout out to Rylee. She was absolutely locked in and amazing as always. I loved her facial expressions, perfectly matching the tone of the dance and everything. It was amazing to see. And then Scott also impressed me, man. I thought this couple looked like the real deal. They're a true dark horse in my opinion now. After night 1, I think they got to be in that conversation of potentially being a finale couple, because if this is just a beginning for them, like, I thought they'd be like pretty good, but I didn't think they'd be this good already from night 1. What they showed at night 1, I thought they would show maybe at night 2 or 3. So I'm very much impressed right now by Scott and Rylee. Amazing job by them. I gave them a 7. They received 2 5s from the judges. So they end with a total of 10 out of 20. Then we move on to the next couple, who I was also very much impressed with, and I called them the most intriguing couple going into this season for me, and that is Danielle Official, of course, Topanga from Boy Meets World and Girl Meets World, and her partner Pasha. They danced a tango to Stronger What Doesn't Kill You by Kelly Clarkson. Incredible song. Shout out to Danielle. She defeated breast cancer last year, and she decided to pick this as her like fight anthem in a way. So it was super emotional. Amazing to see this performance here by Danielle and Pasha. I pull up my notes here. I put great timing, super sharp. I don't think I'm shocked by that. If you're a fan of Danielle, if you listen to her on her podcast, you could tell she's such a high IQ person, but not only high IQ, but a super hard worker as well. So the fact that she was on perfect timing and completely sharp with Pasha did not shock me. Danielle's an absolute star. Like I said, when you have a person who's a star, who's smart and a hard worker, I mean, what else more can you ask for? I know what else more you could ask for. I wrote this in all capital letters on my notes. That beautiful smile. I mean, to this day, Danielle Official, she still has that smile, that charm. You can't look away from her, and she just brings so much joy into the world. So shout out to Danielle for not only bringing the joy as she always has with her smile and her acting, but now with her work on the ballroom floor through her amazing dancing debut here on the show with Pasha. Shout out to Danielle and Pasha. I gave them a 7. They received 2 6s from the judges, so that's a total of 12 out of 20 for Danielle and Pasha. Now we move on to Jen Affleck and Jan, who of course is the big time dancer coming over, making his pro debut on the show, coming over from Taylor Swift's The Eras tour. So Jen and Jan, they danced a salsa to Nueva York by Bad Bunny. Jen and Jan, it was like an interesting performance overall. But what I wrote here is like, my first thing was a lot of potential, because I do see a lot of potential with this couple. If they're able to like tweak some things, like starting next week on night 2, I think they could really make some noise as a potential dark horse in this competition. But with that said, they do need to have a lot of things fixed, because to me, there are way too many lifts. By the way, shout out to Carrie Ann Inaba. I know she would have called them out on that. I wrote too many lifts and more content needed. It kind of felt like Jen was kind of just carrying Jen for the majority of the performance. I didn't see enough dance, in my opinion, enough emotion, enough character, so that's something that we're going to have to monitor going forward with this couple. And obviously it's normal too when you think of Jan or Jen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It was his first dance as a pro on this show. So at the end of the day too, we got to give him some patience. Look, I'm a big sports guy. I'm always preaching about giving patience to young coaches, young players. And, the same case here. We got to give Jan some patience and grace here. This was his first night ever performing on Dancing with the Stars as a pro. So at the end of the day, it's normal that he's going to need things fixed. But with that said, I still gave this couple a 6 because, like I said, there's so much potential here. And with that said, they received 2 6s from the judges, so they got a 12 out of 20 for Jen and John. Now we move on to Corey Feldman and Jenna Johnson. Shout out to Jenna, the reigning mirror ball champ. So yeah, Corey and Jenna, they danced a tango. It's still Rock and Roll to Me by Billy Joel. So for Corey and Jenna here, I have to agree, like Bruno and Derek kind of said this in a way where it was like, we all saw like the charm and the charisma and the great performer that Corey Feldman is. But at the end of the day, we needed a lot more dance. And I felt like it was more of a performance rather than a dance overall. I don't know that I worded that the right way. But that said, I did right, great charisma and charm. And I think that's undeniable. Obviously, Corey's been performing for his whole life, basically. We know the type of charisma and energy this guy has. He's unbelievable to watch out there. But I also wrote that more technicality by him is needed in order for him to advance going forward into this competition. But with that said, Jenna, as always, she did amazing. So shout out to Jenna. I gave Corey and Jenna a 5. They received a 4 from Derek and a 5 from Bruno. So it's a total of 9 out of 20 for Corey and Jenna. Then we move on to the next couple, another tremendous couple, by the way. Lauren from Fifth Harmony and her partner Brandon Armstrong. They did an incredible job on their first dance of the season. They danced a tango to Yes and by Ariana Grande. Amazing song. And, Lauren and Brandon coming in were one of the favorites. They've been one of the preseason favorites coming into this competition due to Lauren's, background as a tremendous dancer with Fifth Harmony, performing around the world for many years. And like I said, tremendous start for this couple on the season premiere of the show. I put tremendous potential and a true dark horse because it's just unbelievable what Lauren showcased on that ballroom floor. I gotta shout out my sister. I watched the premiere with her and she said it best. She's like, she's such a badass. And then I was like, she's a badass, but you also feel like a humbleness from her. So it's like the perfect combination for Lauren, and I think she's gonna very much thrive, and she proved it already on night 1. I cannot wait to see what this couple does going forward. Lauren and Brandon received a 7 from Derek, a 6 from Bruno. I gave them a 7. Overall, they get a 13 out of 20. So shout out to Lauren and Brandon. Hell of a start. Shout out to that Miami girl. Lauren, let's go. Keep it going. Now we move on to Andy Richter and Emma Slater. Shout out to Emma. She's the best. So Andy and Emma, they performed a cha-cha-cha to Hold On, I'm Coming. And Andy and Emma, I would say this was the least impressive dance of the night. I gave them a 4. I felt like it was very much off timing. It was very much off beat. And I also classified it kind of as Reginald Part 2. For those of you that don't know, last season, Emma was partnered up with Reginald Val Johnson, a famous, Reginald Val Johnson, sorry, the famous, figure from Family Matters. And no, it was hard last year, obviously, to see Emma. But Reggie, he was of an older age. He couldn't move as well as he once could. And, it was a difficult situation. Here I expected at least a little more from Andy, but I didn't really get it last night. And unfortunately, like I said, yeah, it was the worst dance of the night. I don't think I have much more to say on it. I gave Andy and Emma a 4. They received a 5 from Derek, which surprised me, honestly. And then they received a 4 from Bruno, so they got a total of 9 out of 20. Then we move on to a very impressive dance. Definitely a candidate for best dance of the night. Hilaria and Gleb. They danced an amazing cha-cha-cha to Let's Get Loud by J-Lo. Incredible song, of course. But Hilaria, she's an absolute star. Like, she looked like, for a good majority of that performance, she looked like the pro, basically, next to Gleb. It was unbelievable to say that. I want to reference my sister once again. She said, this might be the best partner Gleb's ever had on the show. And I completely agree because Hilaria was just on it from start to finish. On my notes, I wrote amazing and hot capital letters. I put a star and true dark horse because if Hilaria and Gleb are able to continue on this trajectory that they started with on, night 1, just imagine what they're going to be able to do by night 4 or night 5. What an incredible start. I'm happy for Gleb as well. It's nice to see him have a great start to the season, especially after, it was looking like he wasn't going to be asked back for this season. So shout out to Gleb and Hilaria. What more is there to say? Obviously, she's a beautiful woman. And now to see her out there showcasing her dancing ability on the ballroom floor was a joy to watch, So shout out to Hilaria and Gleb. Cannot wait to see you guys going forward. You guys are a true dark horse in this competition. Now we move on to the final dance of the night, arguably the best dance of the night as well. Just unbelievable is what I wrote in my notes. Robert, Irwin, and Whitney Carson, they danced a jive to Born to Be Wild And let me tell you, Robert and Whitney, I literally wrote unbelievable. I gave them a 10. So like I gave 2 10s tonight, one to Whitney and Mark, and now one to Robert and Whitney. There's something about the Whitneys, but not. But but yeah, so I gave Robert and Whitney a 10 because I mean I was absolutely mind blown. This guy looked like an absolute superstar from start to finish of his debut performance on the show. And of course, seeing his family in the audience, including his sister Bindi, who won Dancing with the Stars. You know, she is a Mirrorball champion. She won with Derek Huff, and you know, to see his family in the building, to see him pull off the performance he did alongside his incredible partner in Whitney it was a complete joy. As a fan of Dancing with the Stars, I think I could speak for a lot of people. Not that I'm speaking for everyone. Obviously, we all have our opinions, but as a true diehard fan of the show, watching Robert and Whitney perform this dance was an absolute joy. You know, I'm kind of speechless, just like I was with Whitney and Mark. Like Robert and Whitney just blew me away, you know, so unbelievable. Like I said, I gave them a 10. They received an 8 from Derek and a 7 from Bruno, so 15 out of 20 for Robert and Whitney. And then a couple more notes before we wrap up here. I wrote, to end my notes for the night, I put incredible premiere, great charm, and great competition. And, you know, I think it's totally true. The competition level on this season is going to be one of the highest in the history of the show. And like I said in the beginning, what better time than the season where the show is set to, you know, celebrate their 20th birthday. I absolutely love Dancing with the Stars. And, you know, it's a joy to have been a fan of this show growing up. I remember as the earliest season, I remember in my head was watching Julianne Hough and Elio Castroneves win. And from that season on, it's been an absolute joy over the years. And within the last couple of years to be able to now cover this show on my podcast and give my thoughts on it and share them with the world. It's just an absolute blessing. I thank God that I'm able to do this because, like I said, this show just means so much to me. And I mean, just an unbelievable start. I cannot wait for night 2. Make sure to tune in next Tuesday night on ABC and Disney Plus at 8/7 Central. And with that said, you know, the premiere, there is no eliminations, and you know, God willing, we'll have Carrie Ann Inaba back in the judging booth next week. And you know, with that said, since there was no eliminations tonight, there will be a double elimination next week. My predictions going into it is that Corey and Jenna and Andy and Emma will most likely be eliminated. Ultimately, we're going to have to wait and see. It's not all about scores. It also has to do all the votes that come in. With that said, the top of the leaderboard right now, tied at first, we have Whitney and Mark and Robert and Whitney tied at 15. Then in second, we have Hilaria and Gleb with a 14, followed by Alix and Val and Lauren and Brandon with a 13. So, you know, the competition is hot. Like I said, the majority of these couples are definitely in it to win it, and none of it is talk. It's all action. They all showed it on that ballroom floor. With all that said, guys, gonna wrap up this Dancing with the Stars season 34 premiere episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to give me your thoughts on what you thought of any of these couples and what you're looking forward to going forward now into this season, make sure to drop your thoughts down here below. If you're watching on YouTube, you can also reach out to us on Instagram or TikTok at @theflame_ES, and definitely stay tuned for more, you know, Dancing with the Stars content coming your way. And one more thing, forgot to mention this early on, but shout out to all the brand new troupe. They all made their debuts on Dancing with the Stars, and especially Hailey Bills. She absolutely killed it. She was amazing in her debut as a troupe member on this show. And this is only the beginning for Hailey. Cannot wait to continue to follow her journey going forward. She's an absolute superstar, and it was amazing to be able to witness her greatness on the ballroom floor. So yeah, guys, with all that said, please once again follow us on Instagram and TikTok at @theflame_ES. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Share with a friend who loves Dancing with the Stars or who happens to love any of these specific pros or celebrities on this season. And with all that said, till next time, everyone, take care.